Damn it! At this rate, we are bound to lose. In the sky, the human godchild, his face full of fury, unleashed a vicious attack. As soon as he struck, the heavens trembled, and even the countless dark voids shattered with ease. Both the Dark King and Xiao were forced to retreat step by step, their faces growing increasingly grim. You, take these people and go to Nether City to seek refuge. I'll stay here and hold them off. The Dark King slightly released the black and white power from his body, then let out a heavy breath. Without the power of the demon robe to support him, the black and white energy, imbued with the aura of a half-god, made even the Dark King's face darken with unease. You can't handle him. As the first elder of the Xiao clan, how can I abandon my own people? Faced with the Dark King's resolute words, Xiao, the first elder, scowled and firmly rejected him. Don't worry. After all, I am one of the rulers of the Netherworld realm. I won't die so easily in the short term. The Dark King's voice was cold, carrying an endless evil intent that sent a chill down the spine. Countless dark breaths spread out once again like a rising tide. Swoosh. Accept death. Yin-yang reversal. A light laugh escaped the human godchild's lips. He raised both hands high above his head, and the black and white energies in his palms rapidly blended together. In the blink of an eye, they transformed into an eerie black and white moon, hanging ominously in the sky. Move! The Dark King's sense of unease intensified rapidly. A faint dark energy surged around him, and a torrent of demonic power poured out without restraint. In an instant, he formed a colossal net of dark power across the heavens, trying to buy time for those behind him. He turned abruptly, shouting at the First Elder. This level of attack was far beyond what the peak of the 9th reincarnation stage could resist. It's too late. The First Elder Xiao eyes glimmered with coldness as he shook his head helplessly. Their speed was no match for the human godchild's attacks, and behind them, the powerful members of the Endless Flame Alliance were closing in. They would have to face the attack head-on. Buzz, buzz. The black and white crescent moon began to take shape, emanating a powerful yin-yang force. In the tremor of the void, the overflow of energy turned into countless sharp energy blades, rushing towards the two like a storm. The shadow of the crescent moon blotted out the sky, its power overwhelming. Where the yin-yang energy blades passed, the void itself was torn apart, and every single blade contained half-god power, enough to obliterate all within its reach. Fall. Countless yin-yang energy blades descended first, followed by the eerie crescent moon like a falling star. Seeing his creation with such satisfaction, the human godchild's long black hair swirled in the wind, as though in the next moment, the two peak 9th reincarnation stage warriors would be utterly destroyed. Under the dual assault of the yin-yang energy blades and the eerie crescent moon, the two would be utterly annihilated, leaving not a trace behind. Boom! A cold gleam flickered in their eyes as both of them unleashed their full force, channeling the destructive energy of the peak 9th reincarnation stage into their fists. They tore through the dark void and collided head-on with the incoming attack. Boom! The sound of clashing metal echoed like ripples, as the countless yin-yang energy blades shredded the space around them. Despite their immense power, the terrifying force unleashed by the Dark King and Xiao caused them to stagger backward, their bodies trembling. The First Elder and the Dark King had exhausted all their strength, but before the eerie crescent moon could descend, the strange yin-yang energy blades alone had broken through their defenses and were now targeting their vital points with unstoppable force. The power of the half-god stage was simply overwhelming, almost suffocating in its strength. Just as the energy blades were about to pierce through their iron fists and destroy their very essence, a dark green glow suddenly erupted from the void beneath their feet. As the dark green glow burst forth, it quickly transformed into greedy, beast-like forms, with sharp, evil mouths emerging from the glow, viciously tearing at the yin-yang energy blades. The harsh screeching noise filled the air. The yin-yang blades were disrupted and shredded, causing them to collapse instantly. Only the eerie crescent moon, brimming with half-god power, remained. Its momentum only increased, like a giant wheel of death, rapidly approaching the two of them with overwhelming force. The human godchild's gaze narrowed. He could clearly sense the energy contained within the dark green glow, far surpassing the current Dark King and Xiao. That was the true peak of the 9th reincarnation stage. The later stage. It was nearly at the very pinnacle of reincarnation, but no matter how powerful it was, how could it resist him? The eerie crescent moon fell from the sky, and countless black and white forces surged like a tidal wave, flooding towards the Dark King and Xiao. At the moment they faced the overwhelming black and white torrent, both the Darkness King and Xiao felt a slight tremor within their bodies. It seemed that, in the presence of such power, they couldn't help but feel how insignificant they truly were. As the crowd stood in stunned silence, a dark green, magnificent evil shadow suddenly erupted from the endless demon abyss below. Surrounding it was a suffocating aura of demonic energy, and it pierced through the void, slamming viciously into the black and white torrent. Boom! Countless gazes instantly narrowed. Two forces shattered the void, colliding fiercely with each other. Waves of indescribable destructive shockwaves rippled out, and the entire void was filled with countless destructive energy storms. The shockwave had not even fully subsided when the crowd's breaths grew hurried. Their gazes remained locked on the core of the explosion, where an undying evil spirit seemed to reside. Half-god power, truly extraordinary. As the explosion's aftershocks gradually faded, a demonic figure, cloaked in 10 different hues, hovered in the sky. His crimson eyes flickered with a deranged and horrifying smile. Shock spread across the faces of the human godchild and the others. This guy actually managed to block his attack? A mere peak of the 9th reincarnation stage could never withstand half-god power. You brat, you didn't disappoint me after all. Looking at the figure cloaked in demonic runes, the Darkness King forced himself to stabilize his weakened state. His voice clearly carried a hint of urgency and relief. Thankfully, it worked. The situation is still far from optimistic. The demonic Xiao, surrounded by an icy demonic aura, stood beside the two mighty figures. His eyes shimmered with 10-colored light as he gazed at the human godchild. He spoke calmly, "Deputy Lord." Upon seeing the situation, forgetful immortal Xuanzuan also darkened his face and stepped closer to the human godchild. "Let's fight." With a silent sweep of his gaze toward the Darkness King and the others, the human godchild spoke indifferently. "Rest assured, leader. These insignificant minions are no match for us." Behind him, the experts of the Endless Flame Alliance laughed heartily as they watched the demonic Xiao radiating a brilliant glow. Then, under the leadership of Yao Ji and the King of Beasts, they charged into battle against forgetful immortal Xuanzuan's allied forces. At this moment, the battle between the two allied forces seemed to show a slight advantage for the Endless Flame Alliance. Bang! 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 Intense energy clashes erupted in the high skies above the demon abyss, the force reverberating across the heavens. Where the two sides of powerful combatants clashed, the void cracked and twisted, sending a suffocating feeling of an impending catastrophe throughout. The attacks from the core circle, where the four strongest figures fought, were particularly terrifying. Humph! I didn't expect a dying man to evolve to such a level. From afar, as the two armies finally engaged, flames of war streaked across the sky. The human godchild, hands clasped behind his back, stood in the void once more. He waved his hand, effortlessly deflecting the combined attacks of the three opponents, then locked his eerie gaze on Xiao and the others. The combined assault of these three was no small threat. Even now, he had no assurance of victory. Xiao had come close to death earlier, but under the Darkness King's wild actions, not only had he been reborn, but he had also gained the full strength of the demons. His power had surged to the peak of reincarnation, and his combat ability had reached an unfathomable level. Though the Darkness King had weakened due to his demonic robe, as one of the two rulers of the Netherworld realm, there was no doubt that he still held many terrifying trump cards. As for Xiao, this old scoundrel had once controlled the majority of the Xiao clan's heritage. Once the Xiao clan was ranked among the greatest in the Great Thousand Worlds, with a foundation that ordinary people could never imagine. Among the three, his threat was likely the most enormous. The two archangels have fallen. Our Xiao clan's grudge must be repaid. In the blink of an eye, the demonic Xiao Yin glowed with magnificent colors, his demonic eyes surging with a powerful evil aura, the killing intent palpable. Hmph, you speak with arrogance. In response to Xiao Yan's maddened words, the human godchild sneered coldly. His eyes gradually filled with the power of black and white, signaling that even someone as formidable as he was feeling immense pressure from the combined strength of the three-peak ninth reincarnation stage warriors. Attack! The three exchanged looks, and then vast reincarnation power expanded outward. In an instant, three dark shadows streaked through the void at the edges of the Netherworld wall, launching their final assault with an overwhelming, world-shattering force. Though the half-god stage was powerful, the human godchild was still in the early stages of half-god. His time in this realm was short, but with the three-peak ninth reincarnation stage warriors from the Xiao clan gathered, a fierce battle was still possible. The human godchild let out a heavy gasp, and immediately, a streak of black and white yin-yang energy burst from his eyes, forming a black and white scroll right before everyone. The scroll was simple, without many intricate patterns, merely a plain painting made of black and white runes. Yet, the subtle fluctuations emanating from it caused Xiao Yin and the others to be visibly moved. However, the human godchild's attack was fierce, and both demonic Xiao Yin and the Dark King were no pushovers. The vast power within them transformed into a sky full of stars, almost seeming to create an invisible counterforce against one another. Huff, buy me some time. Seeing that demonic Xiao Yin and the Dark King were barely able to hold their ground against the human godchild, Xiao Yan's gaze cut through the netherwall, lingering on the human godchild, before speaking. Understood. Demonic Xiao Yin and the Dark King nodded in unison, as the breath of demons and the power of the sacred flame surged forth, pouring into the vast starry river, and they attacked again with a renewed vigor. Time is running out. At this point, I have no choice but to try that thing. As his words fell, Elder Xiao Yin stood motionless in the dim void like a decayed tree. Then, a silver-white scroll slowly appeared in his hand. As soon as it materialized, the entire gloomy void began to shake, and the evil clouds in the sky rapidly dissipated as if they were being suppressed by an overwhelming force. Though it was merely a plain silver scroll, its terrifying power far surpassed that of the human godchild, even eclipsing the power of a demigod. This fluctuation? The human godchild, who was struggling against the relentless assault from demonic Xiao Yin and the Dark King, barely caught a glimpse of the scroll through the gaps in the battle. Upon seeing it, the yin-yang black and white energy within him trembled faintly. Your heart is starting to waver. Demonic Xiao Yin smirked lightly, his hand surrounded by a tin-colored glow, cutting through the void and descending to suppress the human godchild. Trickster, today I will wipe you all out. Explode. The black and white energy around the human godchild spun rapidly, all of it being poured into the scroll. The overwhelming black and white power formed an endless abyss, and a destructive force slowly emanated from it, shaking the surroundings. Rumble. Just as demonic Xiao Yin and the Dark King's faces changed, trying to use the starry river to counter this force, a soft silver-white halo suddenly surged from the side, enveloping everyone's bodies. How is this possible? The countless forces of the Endless Flame Alliance, who had been locked in battle below, were also shielded by the halo. Then, forgetful immortal Xuanzuan's full force strike mysteriously vanished as it collided with this silver-white light, his eyelids twitching as waves of unease surged within him. Gulp. This is divine art? Are you crazy? As he watched the ancient scroll in Xiao Yan's hand begin to glow with brilliant, ancient runes, the yin-yang vortex behind the human godchild suddenly contracted. A long-forgotten shock rippled through his soul. Though he was at the demigod level, he had never possessed any of the four divine realms: divine rank techniques, divine rank do techniques, divine body, or divine realm soul. If Xiao Yin were to use the divine art, sacrificing everything for its activation, The human godchild didn't believe he would survive. Damn it! Looking at the many allied forces retreating under the desperate attacks of the Endless Flame Alliance, suffering severe losses without achieving any results, the human godchild's face twisted into a vicious snarl. This battle had been costly, and they had gained nothing. But if they continued to entangle here, once Xiao Yan's divine art descended, even he might fall into despair and perish here. Having reached the pinnacle of the 9th reincarnation stage, or even the half-demigod stage, the human godchild seemed to understand how to avoid disaster. Weighing the situation, he suddenly shook his head. Retreat. Without a moment's hesitation, the human godchild broke free from the encirclement of the three, carrying forgetful immortal Xuanzuan's soul with him, and shot toward the Netherwall in the distance. As for the others, their anxiety and worries faded away, lost to the Endless Flame Alliance. Think you can escape so easily? Demonic Xiao Yan and the Dark King exchanged a glance, a hint of pursuit in their eyes, but their movements were slow, clearly feigning an attack. In an instant, the human godchild and Xuanzuan broke free from Xiao Yan's pursuit, entering the Nether City, and the area around the Netherwall finally fell silent. Demonic Xiao Yan shook his head lightly, his body trembling. Using the power of the 9th reincarnation stage and the demonic robe, he could barely match the strength of a half-demigod. Indeed, the half-demigod stage lived up to its reputation. You all right? After a moment of eerie silence in the sky, Yun and the others swiftly flew toward Xiao Yan, their concerned and anxious gazes growing more evident. I'm fine. The void fell nearly silent again, and demonic Xiao Yan turned slightly, flashing a wicked smile at the two women. The human godchild fled with the forgetful immortal Xuanzuan, and without a leader, the allied forces of the two factions collapsed in an instant, disintegrating into chaos. At this moment, below them, the endless demonic abyss was filled with countless demon citadels of various shapes. From these citadels, skeletal hands constantly reached out, as if relentlessly devouring all the energy in this world. The entire void was growing more and more sinister. If not for the suppression from the demonic wall and the forces of darkness, the abyss would likely have spread out, consuming the entire Netherworld. After completing the true demonic transformation, Xiao Yan strangely discovered that the demonic abyss seemed to carry its own demonic power. However, even with this might, it was still far from the legendary divine art. All the powers devoured by the demonic abyss were returned to Xiao Yan's body, supplying the ancient emperor with the most pure energy. With the crisis averted, everyone let out a heavy sigh of relief. Elder, what's this formation? A group of people stood at the edge of the demonic wall, looking at the first elder, whose expression was especially serious, and the power emanating from the mysterious scroll in his hand, which seemed far beyond the demigod power of the human godchild, causing them all to change their expressions. If this guy were to unleash this power, the Netherworld would likely be wiped out. However, no one noticed that even before the first elder had fully opened the scroll to unleash the divine art, the reincarnation power within him was already being devoured and consumed by the scroll, almost completely. Divine class Do techniques, divine arts. These were powers that could only be used by those at least at the demigod rank, and the first elder's boldness was truly admirable. Humph. This old man certainly hides his strength well. The Darkness King seemed to sense something, sneering as he turned his gaze toward the endless demonic abyss below. Without the leadership of the human godchild and others, most of the allied forces had already been devoured by the endless abyss, and the remaining powerful warriors were all captured by the Endless Flame Alliance and others. This outcome was a heavy loss for them. Moreover, for Xiao Yan, the chief steward of the Xiao clan, wielding a divine art was not surprising. After all, possessing a divine art and being able to jointly cast it or cast it alone were completely different things and should not be confused. Cough. This is the treasure of my Xiao clan. Divine art. Annihilation Cloud Realm. Only after the figures of the human godchild and the others were completely swallowed up in Xiao Yan's sight did the first elder finally put away the scroll, a satisfied smile curling on his lips. This divine art, even if he exerted all his strength, he likely could not fully unleash it. His action was merely to intimidate the newly ascended demigod human godchild. Elder, your actions were too rash. Moreover, with your strength, you cannot unleash the divine art. If the human godchild had not retreated, our situation would have become even more dangerous. Yao Ji, being someone from the side of the Holy King, was well-versed and immediately recognized what the first elder was holding, as well as the little trick in his heart. This guy had clearly tried to scare the newly ascended demigod human god child with the divine art. And now, it had actually worked. Divine class Do techniques? Divine arts. These were the most destructive forces in this world. Under their assault, even demigod-level powerhouses would feel small, like ants, with their lives beyond their control. Indeed, it was a bit forced, but if he didn't retreat, the three of us would have been able to deal with him, though it would take too much time. Xiao slowly put away the divine art scroll and turned his gaze toward the void beyond the demonic wall, clearly aware that too much time had been wasted, and the battle within Nether City must have already reached its peak. In the distance, the void above Nether City had almost solidified. Waves of thick, violent energy ripples spread out, with thunder and lightning flashing, as if the sky and earth were about to collapse. The intensity of the battle far exceeded any normal reincarnation struggle. May I ask, Xun'er, what is happening within Nether City? Demonic Xiao eyes flickered as if instinctively sensing a terrifying fluctuation. The bloodline within him surged with a maddening, frenzied aura. True demons had no fear of retreat or failure because demons were reborn through destruction and destroyed through rebirth. With Xiao voice, the others fell silent, their eyes turning to the Darkness King, Xiao Yunming. Nether City is the core of the Netherworld. When I first entered the Netherworld, the void here was extremely unstable, with spatial currents and time force anomalies constantly occurring. It was like a newly opened continent. The Dark King struggled to recall the scenes from back then. Even in simple words, the immense hardships he had endured were evident. Unstable? The newly created continent? Listening to the Dark King speak about such obscure matters regarding the Netherworld realm, Xiao and the others were instantly shocked. The vastness of the Netherworld realm's territory was unimaginable. Even a spatial attribute expert at the peak of the 9th reincarnation stage could not create such a world. Could this be the work of that powerful figure? I don't know, but in the core of Nether City, there exists a faint, almost imperceptible aura. This aura seems to be tied to the very existence of the Netherworld realm. The Nether King suspects that it is the source of the Netherworld. After the first battle of heaven and earth and the Xiao clan's defeat, we joined forces to save them. But strangely, when we brought those powerful figures into the Netherworld, there was no suitable place for them to settle. They were completely uncontrollable, as if instinctively occupying the region near the source of the Netherworld. Without any conscious effort, they formed an ancient sealing barrier around themselves, as if to avoid the probing of certain forces. Even with all the strength of the Netherworld realm, we can't shake that sealing barrier, not even a bit. The world there, the Nether King calls it the Celestial Lock Void Realm, and Nether City was built upon it. The Dark King shook his head. Clearly, had it not been for the tragic news at the time, he would never have dedicated himself so fully to studying demonic power. Given his talent and potential, he should have at least reached the half-god level by now. Why haven't those powerful figures shown any signs of waking up after all this time? The King of Beasts felt that something was amiss and asked with a shake of his head. After all, these individuals had likely transcended reincarnation, their life force as long as that of the heavens. I don't know. Faced with everyone's questions, the Dark King could only helplessly shake his head. Let's go. We must first reach the place of the seal. If we can rescue them, we will succeed in this war for the Netherworld. Xiao said. Let's go. As soon as the words were spoken, the group set off toward Nether City in full force. At this moment, the layout of Nether City was truly breathtaking. This was the battlefield where the Nether King and the Supreme from beyond the Outer Realms fought, and also the place where the strongest of the Xiao clan slumbered. Its importance to the Netherworld war was beyond description. Above the horizon of Nether City, flashes of blades and sword light danced relentlessly, the assault fierce and brutal to the extreme. Nether King, you are a wise man. Why throw away your bright future for the sake of a few dying individuals? Hand over the Xiao clan members and submit to us from the outer realms. With my supreme divine power, I can help you reach the highest realm. Once that happens, everything in this world will be yours. 3 black figures stood distant in the sky. One of them spoke darkly, his eyes filled with an aura of chilling severity. After hundreds of clashes, even combining their powers, they still couldn't gain an upper hand against the Nether King. The void here had already begun to fracture, showing signs of their intense battles. But there was no clear victor. The battle was deadlocked and intense. Doshin, huh? The Nether King's voice was calm, his body showing no sign of any reincarnation energy flowing. There was only a faint black glow flickering. That power didn't resemble the evil, murky green demonic energy. Instead, it was pure, endless blackness, deep and unfathomable. That was the source of dark matter, the power of the Netherworld. Half-God stage, late phase. This guy has been at the peak of the half-God stage for too long. He's entrenched there. With only our combined strength, we'll likely be unable to defeat him in a short time. Sensing the immense pressure from the Nether King's power, Heavenly Guardian's face darkened. The 9th reincarnation stage, including the divisions within the half-God stages, was only a measure of how long someone had been at that level. However, as a trusted general beside the Supreme of the Outer Realms, Heavenly Guardian understood better than anyone else what such power represented. One of them was the Supreme Commander of the Sacred Clan, standing at the mid-level of the half-God stage. The other was a trusted lieutenant of the Supreme from the Outer Realms, also at the mid-level of the half-God stage. But even with both of their powers combined, they couldn't inflict any real damage on the Nether King. The latter's strength seemed to far surpass theirs, which is why the battle here had become a stalemate. Why not let the Supreme from the Outer Realms come? I've heard that the Supreme from the Outer Realms has reached that coveted realm. The Nether King's voice was calm, and in his eyes, even 2 half-God experts at the mid-phase seemed no threat at all. Half-God, quasi-God. Without any surprises, the strongest beings in this world, those who have ascended to the quasi-God stage, in everyone's minds, are only Xiao Yuntian, the clan leader of the Xiao clan, and the leader of the extraterritorial evil clan, who rules over the outer realms. Even the Lord of the human realm strength, back during the first battle of heaven and earth, was barely at the half-God level. A mere half-God, and they think they can provoke my king? They overestimate themselves. Enough talk, let's fight. As the words fell, thick demonic energy began to rise around them, a terrifying force rapidly gathering. While speaking, endless darkness materialized around the Nether King. This power was not like demonic energy, which carried a malevolent aura. It was filled with profound mysteries. Vaguely, there was the faint hum of primordial energy, similar to the aura Xiao Yin had when he unleashed the flame mantra earlier. Though weak, it was undeniably real. Since you are so stubborn, then we have no choice but to slay the gods. The Heavenly Guardian, the Supreme Commander of the Sacred Clan, and the Law General all sneered, their movements radiating waves of evil energy, domineering and powerful, like true evil gods. The sheer force shook the entire void of Nether City. Below, the 8 Directions Death Lords and others had grim expressions, constantly channeling their life force to resist the terrifying waves of energy spilling out from above the Nether City. After all, beneath the city was the sealed area. If something were to happen, the consequences would be unimaginable. Open it for me. Demonic Sea Holy Domain. The Supreme Commander of the Sacred Clan made the first move, this time with no restraint. As the words echoed, vast crimson demonic energy erupted from their body. The demonic energy, blood-red and bizarre, immediately engulfed the entire darkness in the void, casting it in a sinister, dark red hue. The crimson sea of demonic energy surged rapidly, forming an endless blood sea that rampaged freely, sending shockwaves through the sky. Moments later, the entire dim sky was violently shaken by the blood sea, which twisted and formed a towering blood-red execution ground within. The blood-red execution ground sank slightly in the center, with countless evil demonic energies imprisoning the three within. The sticky crimson demonic energy emitted sharp howls, as though it had its own life, forcibly dragging them into this execution ground. Are you ready to get serious? Then let me see the true power of the extraterritorial evil clan. The Nether King let out a long roar, like thunder rolling across the sky. It was clear that this was the true beginning of the battle. Boom! The blood sea raged, and the entire void seemed to be sealed by a unique power. The three of them were trapped within this special execution ground, and it seemed only the fall of their lives could dissolve the prison. As they gazed at the intensely flashing, destructive waves rippling across the blood-red execution ground, the approaching Xiao and his companions' eyes narrowed sharply. The demonic energy churned violently like monstrous waves in the ocean, covering an incredibly vast range. Upon closer inspection, they noticed the demonic energy was even emitting a sound that shook the soul, as if some extraordinary divine power had fallen into the sea of demonic energy, causing a violent transformation. The cruelty of it all shattered everyone's understanding. The auras of the human god-child and his companion have disappeared here. Looking at the horizon above Nether City, an overwhelming, suffocating feeling washed over them, causing the demon Xiao's demon robe to erupt in an unprecedented frenzy. As for the flame god's cauldron and the god-slaying ruler in his hands, they seemed to faintly sense a familiar fluctuation coming from the Nether City below, as if instinctively detecting something. The god-slaying ruler's ability to sense this energy meant that the Holy King was likely within Nether City. But why would the flame god's cauldron, a sacred artifact of the Xiao clan's supreme elder, also react to such a fluctuation? There's a special sealing force outside of Nether City, isolating it. Without the Nether King's permission, no half-god level experts can enter. The Xiao clan's sealing ground is located beneath Nether City. The Darkness King watched the fierce battle unfolding in the sky, then glanced at the movements of the 8 Directions Death Lords below, feeling conflicted. Now, both sides held power, but which path should he take? Enter the Netherworld to save the Xiao clan, or help the Nether King repel the 2 extraterritorial evil clan supremes? Boom! The foul, rancid demonic sea continued to churn, sending monstrous waves into the sky, with bones and evil resentment filling the air, creating a hellish end-of-days scene. What is that? The quasi-god technique of the extraterritorial evil clan, the demonic blood execution ground? A moment later, Elder Xiao's gaze narrowed, and he detected a familiar aura amidst the sea of demonic energy. It was the vile technique of the extraterritorial evil clan, forcibly pulling combatants into the demonic blood execution ground. If no victor emerged, the execution ground would consume them all, a truly wicked and sinister force. How should we decide? Moments later, the Dark King and Xiao, leading the charge, fixed their gaze on Xiao, who had become the strongest among them, now capable of bearing the weight of the situation. Predecessor Nether King has sacrificed so much for my Xiao clan. How could we, the Xiao clan, stand by and watch him die? We cannot give up on the Nether King. Let's go. Xiao's gaze slowly moved away from the Nether City and turned toward the 3 auras within the demonic Chi-ocean. Good lad, you've got guts. Now this is the true blood of my Xiao clan's men. The Dark King also let out a hearty laugh, clearly impressed. Let's go together. With those words, the group exchanged glances and, with a shared smile, plunged into the demonic Chi-ocean. Despite some of them only being at the 8th or even 7th reincarnation stage, with the mighty power of the half-god level opponents ahead, what were they afraid of? Deputy Lord, Xiao and the others have entered the demonic Chi-ocean. What should we do? Hidden behind the Nether City, forgetful immortal Xuanzuan nervously spoke. This journey into the Netherworld had been perilous beyond measure. The area around Nether City has a mysterious force that even I cannot enter, and this entire Netherworld reeks of an even more elusive and bizarre energy. We may not be able to leave here easily. Let's go, into the demonic Chi-ocean. Hopefully, those 2 half-gods won't die too quickly. If they don't, The three of them together will be enough to overpower even the Nether King. With that, the two of them leapt into the demonic Chi Ocean. In an instant, the demonic Chi Ocean around Nether City was teeming with powerful figures, 4 half-gods and several at the 9th reincarnation stage. Boom! The air in the demonic blood execution ground solidified, the energies of heaven and earth dwindling to almost nothing. The Supreme Saint Clan leader let out a roar, followed by the sound of thunder and war drums. The terrifying sound filled the air, as their steps carved through the raging demonic chi. Suddenly, within the sealed demonic blood execution ground, a dark abyssal crack began to appear, and a black stone sword, the size of an arm, flickered in and out of view, like it had crossed the boundless void to arrive from afar, sending a chilling wave through the air. The ink-black robes of the Supreme Saint Clan fluttered slightly. In this moment, he resembled a true sovereign who controlled the skies, his arms suddenly exerting force to grasp the obsidian stone sword. Brilliant black light burst from it, illuminating the wicked runes on the sword, making them even more magnificent. The Nether King's eyes narrowed, as though he had anticipated this move. Darkness swirled around him, transforming into countless particles of sand that hovered around him, his imposing presence growing even more terrifying. Nether King, do you recognize this? The Supreme Saint Clan leader began to levitate, the powerful aura of demonic chi surrounding him, exuding a sense of immeasurable power. It's an extraterritorial evil artifact, the heaven-extinguishing life sword. Its power is comparable to the top 5 divine artifacts of the human realm. The Nether King squinted, instantly seeing through the sword's origins. Since you know, then be obliterated. With those words, the Supreme Saint Clan leader's arm bulged with dark veins as he slowly aimed the sword at the position of the Nether King. A shockwave erupted as the sword pointed in his direction. The demonic Chi Ocean hummed violently, and even the demonic blood execution ground, constructed by half-god powerhouses, began to tremble. The void shattered, and countless demonic chi particles were cleaved apart by the obsidian stone sword. Though it hadn't reached the true divine technique level, its power was beyond that of an ordinary quasi-god technique. Faced with such a world-shattering strike, the Nether King did not dodge. He knew the Nether City stood behind him, guarded by several heroic figures who had contributed greatly to the Great Thousand Worlds. Even the slightest retreat might cause their sealing barriers to falter, and no matter how small the chance, the Nether King was not willing to gamble. Standing tall, he lifted his head and puffed out his chest, like an untamed ancient emperor, bracing himself against the destructive force of the sword. The black destructive force from the obsidian sword poured down, not spilling over in any way, instead enveloping the Nether King's handsome face and tall form. In the distance, the Dark King and the others, who had just entered the demonic Chi Ocean, narrowed their eyes, sensing something ominous. But alas, when the evil tide subsided and the obsidian sword slowly disappeared, the Nether King remained unharmed. He casually swept his sleeve, and countless grains of sand fell like dust, revealing that he was completely unscathed. How is that possible? Was it blocked? Moments later, the Nether King's figure reappeared before the two. In other words, the sword strike from the Supreme Saint Clan just now, one that could have dealt a fatal blow to a demigod powerhouse, had no effect at all. There seems to be some strange power in the dark matter around him. We can't delay any longer. After stabilizing the Crimson Execution Ground, the Heavenly Guardian stood by the Supreme Saint Clan's side. At that moment, the dark matter around the Nether King transformed into countless colorless, transparent sand grains, which stood out sharply in the dim, crimson sea of demonic energy. Under this layer of sand grains, even the towering demonic energy released by the two powerful beings quickly dissipated. Roar! The two of them roared in unison, their deafening roar reverberating throughout the Netherworld. It seemed as though countless evil forces were hidden within the sea of demonic energy. With the roar, the sea shrank rapidly, continuously flowing into the bodies of the two. This strike is your funeral. Heavenly Demon Palace. All the evil power at that moment transformed into a dazzling, viscous, starry river, filled with evil glow so dense it was unbearable. It rapidly gathered, illuminating most of the dim netherworld. Countless streams of pure evil energy converged, stacked, and fused together, the evil light soaring to unimaginable heights, creating an aura powerful enough to collapse the heavens. Whistling, shrill, shattering, trampling. Waves of power surged from the top of the execution ground, causing the Nether King's face to slowly grow grim. Nether King, retreat. If you do, the Nether City behind you will be completely destroyed. Ha ha ha. A vast, endless demonic maw, stretching for miles with no end in sight, gathered and twisted, slightly opening its mouth as if demanding something or roaring in rage. Layer upon layer of evil radiance surrounded it, highlighting its immense power, so great that just a single glance left one feeling suffocated.